الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Given that it is the end of the year and a lot of us will be calculating our taxes, it may also be the end of the Khums year for you. And so I thought, let us have a session on Khums and what things are liable to Khums, given that it is the fifth pillar of our Furu'ud-Din. Now, the command for Khums not only comes to us in the Ahadith, but the injunction of Khums also appears in the Quran as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Anfal, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا غَنِمْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ. And know that whenever you acquire anything, then for Allah is 1/5 of it. Now I know today's discussion will mostly be about the laws of Khums. And sometimes when we're talking about law and legalities, it's not as exciting as talking about, let's say, an issue of aqa'id or a controversial issue. But something does not have to be interesting for it to be important in our lives. It doesn't have to be exciting for it to be important in our lives. Many of us will go to university and will take some very boring classes taught by very monotonous professors, and we'll sit through those classes because we know that it is necessary for us. Similarly, certain discussions are also necessary for us. Now this verse of the Quran is very interesting. Usually Allah, whenever He commands us in the Quran, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ, and establish prayers, وَآتَوُوا الزَّكَاةِ, and give zakat or give charity, it's a command, do this. But this is not a command, it's a declaration. وَأَعْلَمُوا, and know, إِنَّمَا غَنِمْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ, whenever you acquire something extra, فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ, at the end of the year, whatever is left over, 1/5 of it belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether you want to give it, you don't want to give it, it stops belonging to you. And if you're using it, you're using someone else's money. And that's a very important understanding that we should have. Alhamdulillah, as we will see today, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want khums from our income. He lets us use it. He lets us spend it. And from whatever is left over, Allah does not want all of it. He doesn't want half of it. He only wants 1/5 of it. He only wants 20% of it. Now how is this 20% used? The verse continues, فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ وَلِلرَّسُولِ, it belongs to the messenger, وَلِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ, belongs to the Ahlul Bayt and the orphans and the needy and the one who is stranded. Now inshallah today we will break down khums into two parts, a portion that belongs to the Imam and a portion that belongs to the Sadat. Now one of the discussions in this verse that sometimes our brothers from the Ahl Sunnah will ask is that this is talking about malul ghanima, that which is acquired when a Muslim society or a Muslim army goes to war, and when they win the battle they acquire the spoils of war. And malul ghanima refers to the spoils of war. And yes, in the Arabic language, sometimes the word ghanima is used to refer to that. But when you refer to the root meaning of the word, it is something that you did not use to acquire, you did not use to own, you did not use to possess, and now you came to possess it. Now you came to acquire it. That is known as ghanima, whatever is now belonging to you as an extra. Upon that, khums is wajib. This khums that we give in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has so many blessings in our lives. One thing that we know is that whenever a person would come to the Prophet of Allah and he would give his sadaqah, he would give his zakat, the first person to do that after one of the verses of the Quran was revealed was a man by the name of Abu Awfa. And when he came and he gave his sadaqah or his zakat or his khums to the Prophet of Allah, he said to him, the Prophet of Allah, he said to the Prophet of Allah, I want to be the first one to give it to you after this verse of the Quran has been revealed. The Prophet took it And then you know what he said to him. He said to him, Allahumma salli ala Abi Awfa wa ali Abi Awfa. You know, when we send salawat upon the Holy Prophet, when they take khums, when they take zakat, when they take sadaqah, they send salawat upon us and upon our family as well. And therefore, once a man came to the 8th Imam and he said to him, excuse me from paying my khums. The Imam said, why should I excuse you from paying your khums? When you pay your khums, we make dua for you. Why would I want to excuse you from making dua for you? This dua that we make for you is worth more than any amount of money that you can have in your pocket. So paying this khums is very important. Now, this khums that we pay is usually broken down into two parts. The first part is known as Sahmul Imam. So let's say if you have to pay $1,000 in khums, $500 is Sahmul Imam that we give to our marja of taqleed, and the other $500, the other half of it, is known as Sahmul Sadat. Sahmul Imam is usually used by a marja of taqleed to propagate Islam, to establish Islamic institutions, to establish academic institutions. Today, alhamdulillah, many of our communities are benefiting from scholars who come from Najaf, scholars who come from Qum, for example. These scholars that come and serve the community, you ask them, did you pay for your tuition over there? Did you pay for example, your stay over there? They will tell you no. Did your community, the one that you came to, did they pay for it? They will say no. When you ask them, you know, who paid for it? Who paid for your tuition? Who paid for your studies over there? They will tell you it was the Maraj of Taqleed who used the Khums money to develop the scholars who come and serve our community. Now that's only one of the ways that they use the Khums money. Secondly, Sahmus Sadat. That is the money that goes to the descendants of the Holy Prophet. Descendants who are poor, descendants who are orphan and poor, or descendants who are stranded in a journey where they cannot take care of themselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made khums to take care of them. One thing I do want to point out over here before we move on is that as far as Sahmus Sadat goes, a person himself, if he knows a Sayyid who is needy, he can give it himself to that Sayyid. But as far as Sahmul Imam goes, that portion that belongs to the Imam, it can only be given to the Imam. In this case, that doesn't work for us. Our Imam is in Ghaiba. Or it can be given to the Maraji of Taqleed, and it must be given either to the Maraji of Taqleed or to the representatives or organizations that have permission to use khums money. Now, the next question that comes is, what items are liable to khums? And I know that most of us know that when you have a surplus at the end of the year, that is subject to khums. But actually there are 7 items which are liable to khums. So if you come to the first page of the notes that I have given you, if you look at the 4th slide over there, if you don't have a copy in your hand, just sit next to somebody who has a copy. The first is minerals that are acquired from the earth, whether it's from within the earth or from on top of the earth. If those minerals, somebody goes and acquires them, like gold and silver and other minerals, and they reach a particular nisab, they reach a particular amount, they're subject to khums. Second, treasures that a person finds which are hidden either in the earth or hidden somewhere, and there is no known owner for the treasure, or there was no owner for the treasure, then of course he can take that treasure, but he has to pay khums on that particular treasure. Thirdly, valuables which are extracted by diving. Sometimes people dive into the sea and they find pearls and gems in the sea. When they do that, there is khums on that. Fourth, the spoils of war, as is understood from the verse of the Quran as well. Fifth, a land that a non-Muslim resident purchases from a Muslim. Sixth, lawful property which is mixed with unlawful property. And I think there is a little bit of a confusion over here, so let me clarify it for you. Okay? Sometimes you've got some money, you know the amount, and you know who it belongs to. You've got $200 in your pocket that doesn't belong to you, and you know that it belongs to a particular person. Well, it's very clear, your responsibility, take those $200, go and give it to that person. Case number 2, sometimes you know you've got some money that belongs to a particular person, but you don't know how much belongs to him. I think I might have $200 that belong to him, or I might have $400 that belong to him. So what do I do in this case? I go and I sit down with that person and I do a musalaha with that person. I come to a compromise and a settlement with that person. We sit down, we agree to $300, for example. I'm happy with it, he's happy with it. We do a musalaha. Third case is, I've got $200, I know the amount, I just don't know who it belongs to. For some reason it came into my pocket, all right? Now, or it came into my possession, I've got $200, I know the amount exactly, I just don't know who it belongs to. Or the person whom it belongs to, I cannot find that person ever again. 30 years ago I'd seen him somewhere, now I don't know where he is. What do I do with this money? This money, I can give it in sadaqah, I should give it in sadaqah, I can't use it myself, I should give it in sadaqah with the permission from a marja of taqleed or the representative of a marja of taqleed. Usually when the amount is small, they say you can put it into sadaqah. When the amount is bigger, then they'll tell you what to do with it. And finally, case number 4. So it can't be out of these 4 cases. Has to be one of these 4 cases. Case number 4, I got some money. I don't know how much it is. And I don't know who it belongs to. I'm stuck in both ways. Is it $200? Is it $500? Is it $1,000? And I know it belongs to somebody else. I don't even know who it belongs to, right? So I've got $1,000 with me. Some of it is mine. Some of it belongs to somebody else. How much of it? I don't know. Who does it belong to? I don't know. How do I deal with this? What do I do with it? What do I do with it? Don't know. This is what I do with it. I pay khums on it. I give its khums, $200 as khums, and the rest of the 800, then I'm allowed to use it. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The last one, the benefits of earning and labor, and that's the one that we want to talk about today. So we go to the next page, inshallah. Benefits of earning and labor. So firstly, a person has to recognize which income is subject to khums and which income is not subject to khums. There is some money that you can acquire, and it doesn't matter, even if you don't spend it until the end of the year, that money will never be subject to khums. So let's talk about which incomes are liable to khums, which are not liable to khums. So firstly, the following incomes will be liable to khums. Number 1, if you're running a business, any kind of trade, you're buying and selling, you are, self-employed, you're a contractor, you run a business, the money that you make from that business, the net profit, not the gross profit, the net profit, meaning the profit after you remove your business expenses, that money would be liable to khums. Now, of course, you will remove your personal expenses from it. We'll talk about that a little later. Let's just talk about which kind of incomes can be liable to khums. So number 1, business profits. Number 2, the money that you make by working for somebody through employment. Now, most of us, for example, will go and work during the day. At the end of every 2 weeks or 4 weeks, we're going to get paid. That money that we get paid because we worked for somebody, that money is also liable to khums. Number 3, there's a difference of opinion amongst the scholars. Are gifts liable to khums or not? For example, in the middle of the year, somebody comes and drops me $1,000. Is that $1,000 liable to khums, or is it not liable to khums? Some scholars are of the opinion that it is not liable to khums. Sayyid Sistani is of the opinion that it is liable to khums. Number 4, a legacy. Now, what's a legacy and how is that different from an inheritance? You know, according to Islamic law, let's say a person passes away. His children have a right to his inheritance, correct? If he leaves behind, let's say $1,000 or $10,000, his children have a right from it, and that right is defined by the Sharia. That's called inheritance. On that, we're going to say there is no khums on it. But that person himself, before he passes away, he can actually say, look, I'm leaving behind, for example, $10,000, and I want $2,000 to be given to so-and-so a person. That's called a legacy. That which he defines want to be given to so-and-so a person, and a person inherits that because he has said it, that money may be liable to khums in some cases. So we've talked about those incomes which are liable to khums. Now let's talk about those incomes which are not liable to khums. Number one, borrowed money. So for example, you took a student loan and they gave you $10,000 and you're using that student loan to pay off your expenses. And let's say at the end of the year, you've got $2,000 left over, right? You borrowed $10,000. At the end of the year, you've got $2,000 left over. Is that $2,000 left over liable to khums or not? It's not liable to khums. Secondly, inherited money or property. We talked about it. Inherited money, which you inherit according to Islamic law, is liable to khums. Is not liable to khums. Number three, mahar that a woman acquires is not liable to khums. Number four, if a person, because he's poor, gets zakat money, or because they get khums money, and they don't use it up until the end of the year, there's a difference of opinion here. But Sayyid Sistani says it is liable to khums, and not liable to khums, sorry, and compensation for personal injury from government or an insurance company. So let's say somebody is on, I guess, unemployment insurance because of a disability, and he's getting paid because of that disability, or an insurance company is paying him because he was in a car accident and he got a personal injury. The scholars say that will not be liable to khums. Now, before I move on and I start talking about the expenses that you can have in your life, let's talk about some miscellaneous issues. Firstly, income that you get from employment is different from a gift. In what ways? Let us say I worked until December 31st. They haven't given me my paycheck. They're gonna give it to me on January 4th. December 31st, I've worked for 10 days and they haven't paid me yet. And it's the end of my khums year. Those 10 days which I have worked, for which they are going to pay me on January 4th, the money for those 10 days, is it liable to khums or not? It is. You don't have to have it in your possession. The moment you've worked for it, and they say that they're going to pay you for it, that money, even though it's not in your possession, is going to be subject to khums. But it's different with gifts. If somebody tells you, I'm gifting you $1,000, come and get it from me after 10 days, or come and get it from me after 3 days. The end of your khums year comes, you don't go and get it from him. But he's told you, I'm going to gift this to you, it belongs to you. He said it in public. You go on January 2nd and you pick it up from him. Do you have to pay khums on it from the previous years? No, because the condition for gifts is that it should come into your possession before it becomes liable to khums. And finally, I just also want to point out that items which are unused at the end of the year will also be subject to khums. So for example, in your house, you've got food that has not been used up by the end of the year. You've got fragrance. You've got petrol or gas, in the car. That's not been used up. It is liable to khums, and you have to estimate the value of it, and 1/5 of it will be subject to khums. Now, when do I calculate my khums? Well, the moment I start to earn, and we're going to talk about what it means to start to earn, but the moment I start to earn, my khums year begins. Now I can have a choice to say I'm going to calculate my khums every month, and it becomes very tedious. Or Maraji of Taqlid have allowed us that we should have a khums year, and a person can set a khums year for himself, and everybody should do that. It can be based on the lunar calendar, it can be based on the solar calendar as well. It makes it's very easy for people to say my khums year is going to go from January 1st until December 31st, so that when you're doing your taxes, it's also easier to do that. You can set that for yourself. But once you set the khums year, at the end of the khums year, you will have to calculate your khums and pay your khums. Now, the next question that comes up over here is, what about children who are not baligh? Are they also subject to khums? Let's say, for example, sometimes you have a 10-year-old and they're getting gifts, or they're somehow getting money from the government, right? And that money belongs to them. Do they have to pay khums on it or not? There's a difference of opinion amongst the scholars. But scholars like Sayyid Sistani, they say it doesn't matter. Whether he is baligh or he is not baligh, he is liable for khums. Before he becomes baligh, his guardian or his parents have to pay the khums for him. After he becomes baligh, he is responsible to be paying that khums. Now, let's say, for example, the day of Eid comes, he gets $500. He goes and with his parents spends $300. He's got $200 left over. Now those $200 at the end of the year, his parents will have to take out $40 and give it as khums. If they don't do that after he becomes baligh, it will become his responsibility to pay khums on that which was not paid on. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, as I said to you earlier, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not asked us to pay khums on our income. So if a person is earning $30,000, he doesn't have to be afraid that he has got to pay 1/5 of $30,000. At the end of the year, he can deduct valid expenses from his income. After deducting the valid expenses, whatever surplus is left over, on that surplus he has to give 20% of it away. For example, if a person earns $40,000, his valid expenses come to $35,000. He's left over with a surplus of $5,000. Then 20% of it, which is $1,000, has to be given in khums. The question that comes up over here, what counts as a valid expense and what doesn't count as a valid expense? You will not find in any book of fiqh or any scholar giving you a comprehensive list of this is a valid expense and this is not a valid expense. A valid expense is any expense that you need to have to be able to live a good lifestyle based on your society and based on your own social status within the society. All right? Sometimes a person, for example, may have to buy a higher end car, or he may have to buy a bigger house, or he may have to buy better clothes. It doesn't mean just because he bought a higher end car or because he needs 2 cars. Yes, if he doesn't need them, that's a different story. But because he needs 2 cars, that now he has to pay khums on the second car, there is nothing like that. It goes back to what we call the urf, the common understanding and your social status within the community. Now, I've given you a list, though, of examples of things which can be considered to be valid expenses. Let's just go through that list. So, mortgage, rent, transportation, vacation, going for Hajj, ziyarah, and some level of vacation as well that's considered to be something normal in our community, clothing, food, medical expenses, education expenses are also valid, all insurance premiums, life insurance, car insurance, house insurance, fire insurance, all those premiums that you pay, right, those are valid expenses and they're not subject to khums. Legal fees, parking tickets, if you ever have to pay parking tickets, or any types of tickets, those are valid expenses as well. And also taxes. The taxes you pay to the government, those are considered to be valid expenses as well. Donations, sadaqah, gifts and awards that you give to people, those are valid expenses. Now, I just want to point out over here, when you're giving gifts or you're buying things, as long as it is within your sha'an, within your social status. Let's say a person can say that today it's normal for, I'm using an example of the ladies, but it applies to gents equally. Let's say a person says it is normal for a lady today to have 5 pair of shoes. Okay, I don't know. Is that normal? 5 pairs?
It's too little.
It's too little? All right. I thought 5, more than 5 who would need, right? Okay, well, let's say whatever it is 5 to 7 pairs of shoes. She's got that for the year, alhamdulillah, 1 for example, going to school, 1 for going to work out, 1 for going to work, 1 for going to, or 2 for going to, different types of parties, and a couple extra on top of that. And then one day she goes to the mall and she sees a nice pair of shoes. Does she need it? No, she doesn't. Does she want it? Yes, she does want it. In case I went to a community once and I asked the question, does she need it? And believe you me, all the ladies said, yes, she needs it, right? Okay, in any case, she doesn't need it. She's got enough shoes. But you know what? She says, I want to go and buy that pair of shoes. Can she go and buy that pair of shoes? Yeah, she can. The money belongs to her. But she has to pay khums on it. Because that's extravagance, right? That's not a valid expense. That's kind of living beyond and above your needs. So yes, you can spend that money. That's not a problem with it. But once you become extravagant, once you go above what you need, right? At that time, it becomes liable to khums. The same with gifts as well. You can gift people as much as you want, right? But in a manner that is understandable in our society. If we go beyond it, you can do that, but then it is liable to khums as well. Marriage expenses, furnitures and appliances, those are valid expenses. However, if I spend my money to buy something which is haram, or to do something which is haram, or to do something which is extravagant, well, all that money spent will not be a valid expense, and therefore it will be subject to khums. Now, the next slide talks about the khums on loans. I just want to clarify this because I get asked this question quite a bit. So firstly, if the money that you acquire in the year is a loan, a student loan or a personal loan, and you don't use it up until the end of the year, and some of it is left over, because that money doesn't belong to you, you are not liable to pay khums on that money. So the example I gave you, you got a student loan, you didn't use it up, whatever was left over, you're not liable to pay khums on it, firstly. Secondly, what if a person has a loan from previous years? He used to be a student, took out a student loan, has a 30,000 loan to pay. Now he started to work, and as he's working, he's trying to pay off that loan. What if he puts $5,000 in the year towards that loan? That $5,000, does it count as a valid expense? Yes, it does, and not subject to khums. Now, sometimes a person comes and says, yeah, I've got a $30,000 loan, it's the end of the year, I haven't paid off that loan, I've got $10,000 extra this year, but how can I pay khums when I've got a loan of $30,000? The answer is either before the end of the year, you take that money and pay off the loan so that the money is not with you, or if you choose not to pay off a part of the loan or all of the loan and that extra money remains with you, it doesn't matter how much of a loan you have, on that extra money you will have to pay khums on it. That's very important. All right, the next question that comes up is about certain expenses that we have, like the CPP, the Canadian Pension Plan. Most of you, when you get your paycheck, they already deduct the CPP from it. It's mandatory. Even if you're working for yourself, you'll know at the end of the year when you're calculating your taxes, the government wants the CPP from you. Now, because it's mandatory, and let's say I put $300 to $400 towards CPP, it is considered to be a valid expense, and therefore in that year, it is not khumsable. When does it become khumsable? It becomes khumsable when it matures and I withdraw it. When I withdraw it, the actual amount that I put in, plus the amount that the government put in, plus the interest growth or the gain in it, all those three put together become my income in the year that I withdrew it. So let's say I put in some money right now. When I turned 65, I decided the year I turned 65, I'm going to withdraw $20,000. And now this usually works with RRSP, but let's say I took $20,000 that year. Well, those $20,000 count as my income for that year when I'm 65. If I use it up until the end of the year, there is no khums on it. If I don't use it up until the end of the year at that time, there is going to be khums on it. Second question, now CPP is mandatory, but RRSP is not mandatory. It's a form of savings that we choose to either engage in it and to contribute to it, or we choose not to contribute to it. So what about RRSPs? As far as RRSPs go, let's kind of break an RRSP down. There is the amount that you contribute, and there is a gain on that amount, an interest on that amount. The amount that you contribute to the RRSP is liable to khums in the year that you're contributing. The amount that gains on it, the interest on it, that one would be considered your income in the year that you, anybody? Withdraw it from your RRSP account, all right? What about RESPs? RESPs work the same as RRSPs. The next question that comes up is about purchasing a house, or for example, preparing for a marriage. You know, sometimes purchasing a house, you've got to put on a down payment. And nobody can come up, a lot of people cannot come up, a lot of people cannot come up with a down payment of $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. So generally what they do is they save up every year and then after 5 to 10 years, when they have that amount, then they put it down as a down payment. Now, some people have come and asked that, look, if we are trying to save, and then every year we're paying 20% off as Khums, then we're not able to save enough sometimes, or it becomes difficult for us to save enough so that we're able to put down a sizable down payment. What is the ruling on this issue? So I'm going to quote Maulana Rizvi, who quotes now Sayyid Sistani based on the fatwa of Sayyid Sistani. He says that if in your society having a house is considered to be a necessity or something that's important for someone of your status, two, and there's no way for you to get that mortgage amount together, it's extremely difficult to get that amount together in 1 year, it takes you years to bring it together, then three, that amount that you put aside with the intention that I'm putting this aside to be able to buy a house that is necessary for me, that amount is not liable to Khums. All right? Now, obviously, you can't just say at the end of the year, I've got $5,000 left over. All right, I'm just going to make an intention that it's for a house that, inshallah, I want to buy 5 years down the road. It doesn't work that way. You have to have a genuine intention that I'm putting it aside towards buying of the house. The next question that comes up, now very similar, is the question of jahiziyah, the dowry, right? In some cultures, for example, the parents will have to prepare the dowry, and they may not be able to do it in 1 year. So again, the mas'ala, according to Sayyid Sistani, is the same, that if the dowry is necessary, the jahiziyah, that's what you call it, right, in Farsi and Arabic? Yes? That is necessary for you to put together. You can't do it in 1 year. The money that you put aside for it is not liable to Khums. Then Sayyid Sistani goes further and says, not just for the daughter, because usually the jahiziyah is for the daughter, even to get your sons married, if you don't have enough money to have a proper marriage, not an extravagant one, just a normal marriage, if you don't have enough money to put that together, only by putting aside some money, then yes, that also will not be liable to Khums. Now, we've talked about what incomes are liable to Khums. We talked about valid expenses. We talked about what happens, for example, when you have savings, what happens when you save towards a house, what happens when you save towards a marriage, so on and so forth. We talked about loans and whether they're subject to Khums or not. Then the next question sometimes people ask is, I've never paid Khums in my entire life. Now how do I calculate my Khums? I took it easy. One person came to me, said, I was paying before, but I took it easy for 6, 7 years now. And I have no idea how to calculate my Khums. What do I do with it, right? Now, what I tell them is, one, at least you can calculate the Khums for this year, can't you? You've got your bank records with you. Go through them. Calculate the Khums for this year. Alhamdulillah, pay that Khums. Then go for previous years. There's some previous years, if you look at your bank balance, you look at your bank account, you can calculate the Khums for that year. You calculate that, you pay it. Even if it means you're going to pay it gradually because it's a lot of money that you can't pay at one time, you pay that, all right? Thirdly, but there are some years where you just don't know. You think, well, you know what, the Khums was at least $300 or $3,000, but it could have been $5,000 as well. As far as the $3,000 goes, well, you pay that Khums as well. As far as the extra $2,000 goes, which you're not sure about, you have to do what they call a musalihah, a compromise settlement. With whom? With the marja of taqlid, or a representative of a marja of taqlid who has the permission to do musalihah with you. Now I know it's a lot of accounting and hard work to do, but you know what? When we do our taxes for the Canadian government, don't we go through that trouble? Don't we go through all of that accounting? So even when we do Khums, we would also have to do that as well. Now moving on to the next 2 slides, inshallah. How to pay my Khums. And we know that Khums is divided into 2 parts. There's a Saham, which is known as Sahmul Imam, a Saham known as Sahmul Sadat. As far as Sahmul Sadat goes, our Maraj of Taqlid say that you can actually distribute that yourself. If you know a Sayyid who is needy, you can go and take that money and give it to the Sayyid who is needy. But it will be your responsibility to make sure that he is a Sayyid. It will be your responsibility to make sure that he is needy, and you can give it to that person. As far as Sahmul Imam goes, you cannot distribute it yourself. you have to give it to the marj of taqleed. Now somebody says, why do I have to give it to the marj of taqleed? You see, we're not just individuals. We live in a community. We live in a society. We live in a global community. That global community has to be organized. That global community has to have leadership. That leadership has to decide where the money needs to be used and how the money needs to be used. I remember Sheikh Hassanain, he used to give this beautiful example. He said, when you have to pay your taxes, can you ever tell the government that, look, I've got a road right outside my house, and the road is not proper, it's broken, the road needs maintenance. So you know the taxes I'm supposed to pay for this year, I'm just going to go and fix that road outside my house. Do you think the government will agree to that? Of course they'll not agree to that. They'll say, well, we know where the money needs to be spent, we know how it needs to be spent, we have a budget, and we're running based on that as well. Similarly, a maraj of taqleed will say the same thing to you. Well, you may know of places where it needs to be spent, but we know better where it needs to be spent. Okay? Now, how do I make that money reach my marj of taqleed? There are a number of ways of doing that. Firstly, if you're going towards, Najaf, or you're going towards Khum, you can take the money there yourself, or you can send it with somebody. Secondly, sometimes they have representatives in Canada or in America. You can give it to their representatives. Or thirdly, there's a number of organizations, not just in Vancouver, a number of organizations in Canada which have been given an ijaza, a permission to collect khums. And any organization that you give it to, you have to do two things with them. Firstly, you have the right to demand from them to show you the letter of ijaza. Just because a person says, I've got permission to collect khums, that is not sufficient. You have the right to demand, I want to see your letter. Once they give you the letter, you can give the khums to them, and then you have the right to demand a receipt from them. A receipt that comes from the office of the marja or someone authorized by the marja. Finally, a few miscellaneous points about khums. First, once the khums is paid, the money becomes khums free. Meaning what? Meaning that that money, as long as it is not used, or even if it is used, is never going to be liable to khums again. I saved $10,000 this year, $2,000 I gave in khums, $8,000. I didn't make any money the next year. At the end of the second year, I've got $8,000, but this is $8,000 which is khums free. At the end of the second year, is not going to be liable to khums. I don't have to pay khums on it again. Secondly, people ask, well, can I go to a person's house who doesn't pay khums? And I know that he completely does not pay khums at all. I know that the food I'm eating is being bought with money where khums has not been paid. Can I go to his house? And if I go to his house and I eat the food, do I have to estimate the cost of the food and then give 20% away as khums? The answer is no, you don't have to estimate the cost of the food. You can eat that food. It's not your responsibility to pay the khums. It is their responsibility. If they haven't done it, then yeah, you can consume it. The only time it would be a problem is if there's a particular item that was subject to khums, which usually doesn't happen. A particular item subject to khums, and he doesn't pay the khums on that item, and now that item is what he's serving to you. That could be a little bit problematic. And the last question people ask is, well, I don't give khums, but I give a lot of charity. In fact, I give more than 25% to 30% of my income as sadaqah and charity. Isn't that enough in place of khums? We say, no, that's not enough. You have to give khums with the intention and the niyyah of giving khums. Khums is not just taxation. Khums is an act of ibadah, and every act of ibadah has to have a niyyah to go with it as well. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, we'll open the floor now to any questions that you have. I'm just going to ask one thing. If you have particular questions about a situation in your life and you have to describe that situation for me, then I'm going to request that we do that after the session is over, where I can sit down with you, I can ask you proper questions about that particular issue, and we can go through it. At this point, I'm just going to ask if you have any general questions about what we said right now. Maybe you didn't understand it or you need clarification on it. Yes, sister.
And
Yes.
the
Yes.
In my case, yes.
Yes.
How we can pay for Khums, and which gifts actually, it's not just money, but anything. You know, gifts sometimes go for glories from
Yes.
clothes or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, when you give them toys and they're using those toys, and basically these are toys that generally the kids use, right? And they're not subject to khums. If you're giving them money and they use up that money to buy something to eat or buy something to wear, or they use it to buy something which they need, again, it's not liable to khums at all. But if you give them money and they save it until the end of the year, and they are not baligh yet, then you do the taqleed, you act according to your marja of taqleed. You as the parent act according to your marja of taqleed. If, for example, your marja says that gifts are liable to khums, then your responsibility as the guardian is to take out 20% of what is left over and give it as khums. And if your marja says that no, gifts are not liable to khums, like some of the maraji of taqleed say no, gifts are not liable to khums, even if you don't use it until the end of the year, you don't have to pay khums on it, then yeah, then you don't have to pay khums for him. Then the guardian in this case would be the father, so according to the father. Okay? Yes?
You know how you said that you could have an intention of saving up money to buy a house the years after?
Yes.
What if you needed that money,
Hmm.
you needed that amount of money, can you use it? When you use it, do you have to pay khums on it or no?
So two questions over here. The first question is, can you use that money for another intention now? Let's say you decided that I no longer want to buy a house because I need to buy a car. Yes. Can I use that money towards buying a car? The answer is obviously, it is your money, so you can use it towards buying the car. But the second question is that, okay, let's say I used that money towards something that wasn't essentially necessary, in the sense that I didn't have to save up for it. An opportunity came up for me to, let's say, become a part of a business plan, yes? And I had this money lying around, and I said, instead of investing in a house, let me invest it in a business. Can I invest it in the business? Well, obviously I can. The money is mine. But the question is, now that I've invested it in a business, do I have to pay khums on it or not? I would think that you would have to pay khums on it because you haven't used it now towards buying that which was necessary for you. But I can seek clarification for you on that one. Yes, brother.
For our SP,
yes.
I don't know, I just need to be sure. If we put some, for example, if we put, for example, 100 for child,
Yes.
and the end of the year for 12 months you have 1,200.
Yes.
And then the government, I think they put some money.
Yes, they do.
Interest rate.
Yes, correct.
So, for example, if the government put 500,
Yes.
etc., and then there is an interest rate.
Correct, correct.
So, do we need to do khums only for the 1,200 or the 1,700?
Okay. You will do khums on the 1,200 in that year when you're contributing. The rest of the money, the government's 500 plus the interest gain on it, that is not khumsable at that time. In the year that you take out that RESP, it will count as your income or the child's income for that year. So let's say when they turn 18 and they remove it from the RESP, it will count as their income for that year. If they use it up before the end of the year, then there is no khums on it, right? Because they used up the income for a necessary expense. And if they don't use that up, so the 1,200 will never have khums on it because, well, the 1,200 khums has been paid on it. But the extra, if they don't use it up until the end of the year, then the extra will be liable to khums.
This is 1,200 even if we don't have it because it's in a bank or somewhere.
Yes.
So we should pay khums.
Yes, because it's different from CPP. CPP is a mandatory pension plan, right? They just take it away from you. But as far as RRSPs goes and RESP goes, that's not a mandatory. You're choosing to put that money there. You're choosing that as an expense, or not as an expense, or as a savings. You're choosing to make that as a savings, then yes, it is going to be liable to khums in the year that you're contributing. Yes, Sister Fatima.
The gifts that you receive, if you don't use them, like for example, I have to do my course in January.
Yeah.
And I receive a gift in June.
Yes.
Do I have to in January pay that course for, or do I wait until the next year? Like, does the gift have to sit for a full year before I pay course on it, or just?
My understanding was that a gift does not have to sit for a full year. I mean, once you define one khums year for yourself, at the end of that khums year, if you don't use it, then it is liable to khums. But I recently saw a certain fatwa where they say that if you get an income that you were not expecting, right? For example, let's say you're just doing work, general work. You're working for somebody and you get paid as an employee. And suddenly you get an income based on an investment that you made that you weren't expecting, right? It came out of nowhere. Then that, according to Maulana Rizvi and some other fatwa that I read, he says you can actually, let's say it comes in November and December is the end of your khums year, and you got $10,000 out of nowhere. You weren't expecting it. It wasn't from your regular employment. Now you can't use that up in 2 months usually, unless you've got something you've got in mind. So do I have to pay khums on it at the end of the year? In this case, he said that no, you can actually dedicate its own khums year to it, right? Give a whole year to that. So he has mentioned that for incomes which were unexpected, that weren't part of your regular job or your regular income. I wonder if that would get applied to gifts as well or not. I did seek a lot of clarification, but I haven't yet gotten a clear answer on that. Okay? Yes?
If we buy anything extra,
Yes.
what we need, we pay the khums right away, or we...
No, you have until the end of the year to use it. And if you haven't used it until the end of the year, then you pay khums on it.
Use it. We buy extra and we use it.
Oh, you buy extra and you use it. Yeah. So, for example, in that example, or let's do an example with the men. You bought a nice Samsung phone, and it's good. It does everything you need it to do. Alhamdulillah. And then iPhone comes out with iPhone 7, and that's the in thing. Everybody wants to look good because I've got the latest phone. Do you need the iPhone 7? You don't need it, right? You've got the latest Samsung phone, but you decide I'm going to get it anyways. Can I go and get it? Yes, I can get it, but I have to pay khums at the end of the year on the amount that I spent to buy a phone that I did not necessarily need. I just got it because I wanted to look cool, for example. But at the end of the year, you don't have to pay it right away. At the end of the khums year, yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Brother Hussein.
What if you're using your credit card?
Yes.
Are you allowed to pay the money they're asking at the end of the month from the money you're not paying khums on?
I didn't quite understand the question. So.
Okay, so if you're using your credit card
Yes.
and you buy something, right?
Yes.
You buy clothes, and so there's going to be your statement at the end of the month.
Yes.
They're asking, let's say you spend $500.
Yes.
Credit card,
Yes.
and your statement is $500. And
Yes.
they give you a deadline you have to pay.
Yes.
And but you're paying them back from the money which hasn't you haven't paid khums on that money. Can you give them back that money and like the stuff you're buying with that credit card? Can you actually take possession?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've already taken possession of it, right?
What I'm saying is that
Like, are you asking, can I say salat?
yes.
For example, I use my credit card. So let's not use the credit card example. Makes it very, very, complicated. It was the end of the year, January 31st. So yeah, December 31st. Come January 1st, I have to pay my khums. I haven't paid my khums. I've got $2,000 sitting in the bank account, and I haven't paid khums on it. Okay, and it's liable to khums. Comes January 5th, I still haven't paid my khums. I go to the store, I see a really nice shirt. I buy the shirt using the money directly from my account, directly from the $2,000, and I bought that shirt, for example. Now I bought that shirt and I haven't paid khums on my money yet. Can I, for example, say salat in the shirt that was bought? The answer is yes, you can say salat, right? In that shirt that was bought using money for which you haven't paid khums. Okay. Of course, it's not a right thing to do, you should not do it. But if you say salat in it, the salat is still sahih, it's not batil.
No, I'm not, because when you're saying you're taking your money directly from your account, you're
Yes.
talking about debit card, right?
Yes.
No, I'm talking about credit card.
Okay.
So they're giving you money and they're asking for it at the end of the month, right?
Yes.
So this is not basically your money, it's just money they're giving you as a loan, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Whatever your credit limit is.
Yes.
So when they're asking that back at the end of the month on your statement,
Yes.
by that due date, right?
Yes.
If you don't pay it, you get interest on it.
Yes, yes.
So then you pay them back from the money which is in your account.
Yes.
And you haven't paid Khums on it, but there's Khums on it. So what's the situation?
Okay. I mean, the same thing, yeah. I mean, you can pay that off, but the Khums will still be liable upon you. You'll still have to pay the Khums. And you can't say, okay, but I used the 500 to pay off the loan, so now, for example, that 500 is not liable to Khums. No, I did that after the end of my Khums year, yes. And in the previous year, it was liable to Khums. So that 500, even though was used to pay off the credit card, I still have to pay Khums on it. Yes, if I paid off the credit card on December 31st, correct? And that money was no longer in my account now, right? That money was given to the credit card company, then that money is not liable to Khums. But if I didn't do that, come January 2nd, yes, I paid off the credit card. It was supposed to be paid for purchases I made in December, right, during that particular Khums year, but I didn't pay it off until, January 2nd. Then yes, I can pay it off, but that $500 will be liable to Khums. You don't seem clear on that.
No, because I remember when I asked this question from Sheikh Khalid,
Yes.
he said credit card situation is a little bit different because they're asking that money back and you have deadline to paying them back. Probably I misunderstood.
Okay, perhaps, because I have checked the mas'ala, a loan, they say very clearly that, if it's a loan, you pay it off before your Khums, end of the Khums year, then you don't have the money with you, it's not subject to Khums. But if you don't pay it off, the end of the year comes, yes, you have a loan, but you still have to pay Khums on the money that you have in your hand, which is a surplus from that year. Brother Ali Yekta?
Someone gets gifts on Christmas.
Yes.
And they didn't use them, and let's say the day they have to pay Khums is January 1st. They didn't use it.
Yes.
All those gifts supposed to be.
So that was the same question Sister Fatima was asking, and I say that my understanding has been that those gifts are khumsable and they will have to pay khums on it. But I say that I have seen some cases where an abnormal or unexpected income or an abnormal or unexpected gift, they have said you can give it a khums year of its own. I've tried to seek some clarification on it, but I still don't have a very clear answer. So once I get that, I might share it with you. Okay, I think we'll end over here. Okay, last question.
Is it okay to, for example, say, like January 1st comes,
Yes.
I allocate some money, for example, like rent or for a trip.
Yes.
It's not necessarily, just saving up for a car, but it's allocating, saying, in the next month or 2 months,
Yes.
I'm gonna need some money for certain expenses. So is it okay to allocate that money before paying the funds, or do you have to pay the funds?
No, at the end of that year, if the money is in your possession and it's a surplus in the previous year, you have to pay khums on it. You can allocate it if you want, but that doesn't make it an expense for that year. It makes it an expense for the coming year, and you cannot count expenses for the coming year in the previous year. Of course, if it becomes difficult for you to pay the khums, or for example, sometimes people say that, look, if I pay the khums, I can't pay my rent for next year or for next month. Yes, in this case, you can talk to a representative of a marja and ask for a respite for them to be able to give you that respite and for you to be able to pay the rent and slowly and gradually pay the khums that you are supposed to pay. There's also another exception to that. Let's say, for example, you pay your car insurance in September, yes, and they give you an option to pay monthly or to pay yearly, yes. Now, if you were to pay monthly, then obviously, even if you were to pay yearly, it's actually an expense not only for September to December, but from December to September of the next year as well. So now that is an expense not for this year, it's an expense for next year. Can you count it as a valid expense for this year in its entirety? I mean the whole sum that you're paying for 1 year to be counted in the previous year. Remember, somebody had asked that question. In this case, you just consider it as a one-time payment that you're making towards car insurance. And yes, even though it is meant for next year as well, but you can consider it as an expense for this year. But, you know, with these two exceptions, no, I mean, you know, whatever is this year's expense is this year's, whatever is next year's expense is next year's expense. All right, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Santum Sheikh, thank you very much for that very informational topic. I personally learned a lot and I hope you all did as well. There's a couple of announcements I'd like to share with you all. First of all, your donations can be